Just three ordinary guys trying to understand the crazy world around them. We don't have all the answers, but we've got all the questions. You're listening to Just Add Bourbon with Jimmy, JD, and Brad.
Welcome, everybody, to the Just Add Bourbon podcast. I'm Jimmy Don Kerr.
I'm Brad Broaddus.
And I'm JD Damon.
Guys, we've got a lot of good topics to get into this week, but before we do, I want to talk about a series of shows that we're trying to do on a subject that's very important to all of us, and that is the opioid crisis, nationally as well as here at home. And earlier this week, we released an episode titled, special episode, The Opioid Crisis, where we talked kind of some personal experiences, things that we've dealt with over the years growing up here, and the things that we've seen as it related to, the drug epidemic. We are hoping to do a series of interviews, and we actually did one earlier this week with a guy by the name of Matt Brown and his wife Summer. And Matt told us his story of addiction, how he went through it, how he recovered, and then we got to hear from Summer, his wife, on what it was like from her side of it as the spouse, watching the person that you love go through something like that. I think you said it best, JD, when we walked out of there. It was almost like a mind-blowing experience. We all know Matt, or JD and I know Matt. And to know Matt back then, and to know that he went through that, and then to hear him talk about it, he was just very candid. He was very honest. And then hearing Summer's perspective was, I don't even know how to say it. It was just, my mind was blown when I walked out of there. I didn't even really know. I was just like, oh my goodness, what just happened?
Yeah, and one of the things I said to you guys, we left there, was like, wow. I felt, to finally sit down with somebody who knows so much about something like addiction was really I felt like a light bulb went off over my head,
Yeah, because when we were talking about it during our show, we know just what we know, what we've experienced, but to actually hear it come from somebody who has lived it and then has come out the other side and is actually doing work to help people that are suffering from it, it was an eye-opening experience for sure.
Yeah, and that's what we want to do with it. And we look to lawmakers or different people to try to fix a lot of these problems that don't have experience with it. And, if we were trying to figure out how to prevent robbing banks, you would probably want somebody that's had experience in those things to understand how it works and the inner workings of it to make a difference. And I'm just grateful that they took the time. And, wow, I thought it was a really good interview. So I can't wait to get it out.
Yeah, and we're going to drop that this Wednesday. We'll drop our normal episode this evening like we always do, and then we're going to put the interview with Matt and Summer out on Wednesday. And when I was writing the description for that episode, the way that I wrote it, I said, if you don't listen to another Just Add Bourbon podcast episode, you need to listen to that one. It was just eye-opening. Matt was very honest. Matt's very articulate, and the way that he explained it, clearly a smart guy. He put himself through, he got through physical therapy school at UK and was a full-blown opioid addict. And you'll get to hear him talk about that. It really was. It was just eye-opening. So if you're listening to us right now, check that one out on Wednesday with Matt and Summer, because I think everybody should listen to it. I don't think there's anybody that won't listen to that can't get something from it in some way or another. So guys, we'll go ahead and get into our topics this week. And this first topic was really something that JD had kind of brought to our attention. And there was a Netflix documentary coming out. Was it Unnatural Selection?
Yeah.
I believe is what it was called, Unnatural Selection. And I got to watch a little bit of the first episode. It's a limited series on Netflix. And I think, Brad, maybe you watched a little bit of it as well. JD, did you get to watch any of it?
I haven't watched a minute of it.
Okay, so
covered up.
But that we just kind of thought, that was an interesting topic. We thought something maybe we would discuss. And I'll be completely honest, I know very, very little about gene editing other than the research that I did for the show tonight. The other thing that JD kind of brought to our attention was a guy in China that had basically announced at a summit, I guess it was some kind of summit in Hong Kong last year, in 2018, that he had genetically modified an embryo. Now, he had done this with 7 different couples during a fertility trial. And what he edited was basically the ability for the body to resist the HIV virus. I guess that's how you say it, HIV virus, but to resist that vaccination, that disease. From everything I could read, it was very controversial that this guy even announced this, because most of the scientific community is completely against, I can't remember, it's gene, I can't remember the word, I'll think of it in just a second.
Genome?
CRISPR?
No, CRISPR was what he used to actually do the editing with. Yeah. But it's something to do when you do it with like sperm or whatever. You do it because it can, in embryos, it can basically genetically modify from now on, from all the offspring now on. There's a word for it. Basically, everybody thinks that it's controversial because you could maybe develop a super race, or you could designer babies. People could actually design their babies. And so I just wanted to ask you guys, from an ethical standpoint, and what you know about gene editing, like where do you stand on that?
Well, I think it's a dangerous, dangerous road to go down. Really concerning. You take a man, let's take, for example, Bill Gates, somebody who has almost unlimited resources. And you start doing this gene editing, and if he gets cancer, we take the cancer away. If he gets hepatitis, we take the hepatitis away. This guy can live forever and continue to accrue all this wealth and basically turn into a super race all of his own and continue to reproduce, and his family become ever bigger and ever growing and ever powerful. I think also something to think about is like, let's take another example with Bill Gates. Let's say he wanted to start a basketball team. And he said, I want my offspring to be 6'9". I want them to be able to run a 4.2 40. And not only sports teams, but you make super soldiers, or all these things. And I just think it's a dangerous, dangerous road to go down, and I'm totally against it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now I'm going to be a hypocrite a little bit because I'm completely against it as far as doing something to change that stuff that you could fix, but my receding hairline would beg to differ.
Right.
So there were some things going through my mind when I was challenging this, and I was like, well, that might be nice. I'd be good with running a 4.3 40. But even with that part of it, if you even think about just sports on just the surface level of this, the reason you watch these games is because you have certain people that are elite. And then what makes it exciting is that you have a 2-star that comes up big in a game and stops a 5-star, right?
Sure.
Well, if everybody's a 5-star, then nobody's a 5-star. But I'm with you. I think one of the scariest parts of this, besides just the basic fact of playing God, is the military super soldiers. You think through history, and one of the things I was reading is it said something, you can change these genes to where you can have a certain color eyes, and the first thing that came to my mind was blonde hair, blue eyed, where people would try to create a race. So, you always go back to, well, it would be great to cure diseases, and there's a number of things that you could argue would be great with fixing that. But again, I think we go back in a lot of those cases, just like we've talked about with a number of other things, is why don't we go after what's starting some of these things in the first place and try to change that?
Well, let me play devil's advocate a little bit. So if they could do gene therapy and take cancer away, we've always talked about, the pharmaceutical industry, it's a constant thing. There's never a cure. But if something like gene therapy, and apparently they've got this new technology, it's called CRISPR, where it's almost like if you've ever used Word, it's like copy and paste. You cut something out, you paste something in its place. That's essentially what they're doing.
Wow.
It's some kind of a bacteria they discovered. It can go in and it will cut it out, almost like slicing it out perfectly, and then it will replace it. So if you could go in and you could cure cancer, why would that be a bad thing?
Because, in my opinion, what makes life worth the living is the finality of it. I think we all have been affected by cancer at this point in our lives. And, we miss and love those people. But there comes a time when death has to come. I can't imagine ever looking at somebody and thinking, man, I'm glad you're dead. Or having those bad thoughts. And I understand. But the reason life is worth living is because your days are numbered. If your days are never numbered, don't you lose the joy of life?
Well, I think your days are numbered anyway, though. I think you will eventually die from natural causes. But if you had something like cancer, my dad died from cancer roughly 10 years ago. If there was some kind of gene therapy that would have fixed his cancer and he was alive today to see my girls, your boys, maybe that's selfish, but that's, I'm like, why couldn't that be okay? Now, when it comes to essentially becoming Hitler and trying to make a super race, that I find you can't do that. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's ethical. Having a designer baby, you basically just pick what you want and that's your child. That's the other thing, like you said, it's kind of the randomness of life. I had a child. Ashton looks just like her, has my personality. Addison looks just like me, has her personality.
Right.
And that's the randomness, and that's the beauty of it. My grandmother is suffering from dementia. If there was a way to stop that, ultimately we're all going to die, whether it be natural causes or whatever. But if you could do something like that, and with what my mom's having to do with her right now, staying with her, and she's not, as far as quality of life, really doesn't have any. If you could fix that, why wouldn't you?
So, I'm going to play devil's advocate back to you then. How long is enough? If you're saying right now you fix cancer, you fix dementia, and I think that's great. I want to fix those things. But I also know, I don't want to live to be 100 years old. Do you?
I don't know.
I don't because if your quality of life is really going to go down because of your natural, but what if you take that away? And now you can live to be 150. And then there's more gene therapy, more human editing going on. Now you can live to be 225. You see the road we're going down?
No, I do, and I see your point.
At some point, the population of the Earth is going to be where the natural resources can't handle it all if we continue going down this road. I'm not saying not cure cancer, and I think those things that'd be great. But right now, with the human editing, they're so off target, they could have really bad consequences. The people who are having all this human editing, you're 21% more likely to catch cancer or not live to the age of 76. So as having this human editing at a young age really can have some negative effects on you.
Yeah, I definitely would love nothing more than to be able to cure cancer, right? Everybody wants to. And what my concern is, who is going to oversee this and who gets to be the plumb bob for morality on how far we go. So just like, when we were talking about the NBA stuff, and I'm not picking on you all because I'm brainwashed in the same way to think this. But when we were talking about that and how's it going to work and what we're going to do, something that came up in the conversation is, well, Congress is going to have to get involved in this, right? So do you all trust Congress? Do you think that they handle anything with efficiency?
No, I'll answer.
No,
Right, so
I'll answer no. Yeah, I'll say no too.
So, but we all still think we'll sit here and bash them on every episode, right? Both sides. That's one thing we all three agree on is that this two-party system's ridiculous and that nobody's getting anything done, and anything that the federal government takes over is just a clown show. But then any time that we bring something up, then we'll say, oh, well, yeah, the government's going to have to get involved in this, right? So when you get into this where you're actually changing people, what are the possible consequences of letting people play God, do you think there's going to be 100% honesty? And even if you say, well, somebody is going to have to oversee this, then who's that going to be? And that's what my issue is.
That would be my biggest concern, too, in just doing the reading I was doing, is would it become one of those situations like everything else where the wealthiest are able to do this and the poorest aren't?
Well, sure. You know it's going to be, guys, all the money. And that's my biggest fear is that, I mean, you got people like, I'm going to keep on using Bill Gates because he's so well known, but Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, who can basically, if this technology really progresses, can live forever and continue to pull in and keep the downtrodden because they're accruing so much wealth. They're going to keep it forever.
So you've got those guys, Bill Gates with $1 gazillion, and, you know, it's a lot of photos have been surfacing here lately that with Bill Gates with Jeffrey Epstein. That's a name we've not brought up in quite a few episodes. But you got Epstein, who was into all this life extension stuff, who was giving a lot of money to MIT, Harvard, Stanford. So whether you think that the life extension thing is real, these guys think they can get there. And it just really concerns me of who is going to be over this stuff, who's going to have control of this stuff. I do think it's great tonight, though, that JD is in a way making references almost to clones over here. And I thought I'm usually the crazy one on the show.
I'll go out there with you, baby.
Well, no, I saw the documentary when I started watching it. You're kind of seeing those two different sides. You're seeing like the scientific community who is very guarded, you know, and kind of what you guys are saying. Hey, look, you know, these unintended consequences that we may get into. Mm. And then you've got this other guy who's like a mad scientist. Yeah. He was a scientist for NASA.
The he guy, is that who you're talking about? The Chinese guy?
No, this is the guy that's on the documentary. He's some guy who used to be a scientist at NASA, but he's making his own little like home kits and shipping them out on eBay.
What?
And, yeah.
No way.
Yeah, and he's taken one. They showed some pictures of like these genetically mutated pigs and dogs, and they were just like the muscle. I mean, it was crazy looking. And so he is they're at some kind of conference or something, and he's sitting there talking, and one guy's like, well, why don't you take it? He said, okay, shoots himself up right there at this conference. And that's kind of where I ended. We'll see where that goes. But he is the type that believes that everybody should be able to do it. If you want to be able to, you know, genetically mutate your muscles and you never had to work out ever again, but you would be, you know, you would be physically fit, he thinks that you should be able to do it.
Here's where I really, the super soldiers is the one big thing, but the other thing is, going back to what you talked about, of dying of natural causes. What is natural causes? Because cancer seems to be as natural as they come. Dementia seems to be as natural as they come. So once we fix those problems, what do we fix next? Do we fix heart disease?
But couldn't you look at that as, you know, evolution? There's macro evolution, right?
Oh, yeah. I love it.
So there's macro evolution. So being able to, if we've come as a human race to the place where we can genetically mutate our DNA so that we can live longer, is that not a form of evolution?
It is. But what does that do to our resources? What does that do to future generations? And because I have a theory that in 50 years, there's not going to be more car wrecks. You're not going to die of car wrecks because they're going to be autonomous. They'll be driving you around. So how do you die now? And do you just live forever? And you just rape and pillage the planet for the natural resources?
I don't feel like I'm with you on natural causes. But I think when you see the increases in all these diseases, in cancer, in child cancer, in autism. You know, I know it's not a terminal thing, but in all these diseases, and you see them in the hundreds and thousands % increase, I don't think that that's natural. So I would like to figure out where that's coming from before we get into, because like I said, you think with super soldiers, you know, that there's a very small percentage of people on the planet that have a certain bone density that they could basically fall out of a 10-story building and it not shatter their bones, right? There's only so many people on the planet like that.
Sure.
Then you've got another group of people that has a rare condition to where they don't feel pain, which is extremely dangerous because if they cut themselves for, pain is our body telling us that we need to stop and look at it or get fixed or whatever. So it's very dangerous for these people because they don't know when they're actually hurt because they don't feel pain. But to your point about super soldiers, could you not see a scenario to where in the hands of the wrong people that we would be taking a gene of this person, a gene from that person, then you would take the intelligence, then you would take the extremely athletic, and you would put those things together and create an army.
I would think that almost you would build an army out of an embryo in a petri dish in a lab somewhere. And he's 6'2", and he can jump over buildings, and he never gets tired.
Looks like JD.
I mean, obviously. Every time he pulls the trigger, somebody goes down, and that's great if he's fighting on our side.
Well, I'm just going to say for the record to both of you that if they ever come up with a way for me to be Superman through gene therapy, I'm doing it.
He mortgage in the house, baby.
That's me. I want to fly and be bulletproof. But no, I think I really want us all, after watching the first part of that documentary, I really want us all to watch it and then come back on a future episode and talk about it again. Because before you brought it up, I'll be totally honest with you. As far as gene editing is concerned, I think I knew that maybe they did it in agricultural settings with corn and beans or whatever so that they can grow, a certain type of, and that could be the cause of, rising cancer, autism, the food. I mean, that could be all that.
Okay, so now let me play devil's advocate again. Do we just not do gene therapy on humans? What about the great impact it can have on food industry, things like that? But then you're running who out of business? These small farmers. So what's the balance there?
I think they do that already, don't they? Do you guys know if they do that already? The gene?
They're still developing it. But
they're still developing that stuff. Yeah. It's being done.
Well, I mean, they've been cloning animals since the 90s that we know of. And generally when this stuff, by the time it comes out, they've probably been doing it for 30 years before we know anything about it. So, they're already doing some crazy stuff with that. I mean, you got with the GMO food where, they're growing the corn now that's basically got the Roundup in it. So when the bugs get on the corn, it basically explodes their stomachs. And they say, well, that's not harmful for humans. But then you've got Monsanto that's being, sued for however much money all over the place just for the Roundup specifically.
Well, and on that documentary as well, there's a young guy, a scientist, and he's in this community, and they want to genetically modify the mice so that when a tick bites them, that it would essentially kill the tick. Because I guess there's a bad problem. And they were saying, with the hotter that it is, the ticks are, they can survive. And that's happened around here too, because it's been warmer. You see a lot more ticks out, things like that. And so he was actually going to the community and saying, hey, this is what we want to do, but it has to be a community decision.
Right.
I thought, man, what an interesting thing to have to decide.
Yeah.
We're going to genetically
have a vote on this.
we're going to have to genetically modify these mice so that we can get rid of the ticks, and then these mice may spread out all across the continent. And what happens from that?
Let me go ahead and put my vote in on the genetically mutated mice. I'm against it.
Yeah, me too, JD. I've read too many comic books with genetically mutated anything.
I'm like you. If I can become Spider-Man, hook a brother up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, no, but I really do. I think we all should watch that. That should be like a homework assignment for us. And for the people listening, Unnatural Selection, it's on Netflix. We're not sure. We were talking about it before we came on. We're not even sure how many episodes it is. It's a limited series, so I'm guessing 4 or 5, something like that. But everybody check it out, and on a future episode, when we get a chance to get it watched, we'll talk about it again. Yeah, and really get into it because I watched probably 90% of the first episode, and I was like, what in the world? Because I really hadn't thought anything about that. And so, but no, that was a good conversation. All right, so next thing. And this has been kind of the week of the weird, in my opinion, for some of the things that's happened in the news. And I want to start with our girl Hillary Clinton, or JD's girl. Let's call her JD's girl. Hillary Clinton came out and said that Tulsi Gabbard and Jill Stein from the Green Party were Russian agents. Now, if I recall correctly, after Donald Trump beat her in the election, she made a claim that Donald Trump was helped by the Russians to be elected president. Robert Mueller proved that that was incorrect. And now she comes out with this wild accusation that Tulsi Gabbard... And the thing I don't get is why Tulsi Gabbard? And why Jill Stein? Because Tulsi Gabbard has like 1.2% of the vote. You know, she's not even close to being a front runner. Why come out and call her out?
Well, first off, let's get this straight. Hillary Clinton is not my chick. She's not my nothing. Actually, I actually put a joke about Donald Trump on my Facebook this week. Did you guys see it?
I don't think I saw it.
I said I was decided what I was going to go for his Halloween, a clown. So if anybody has a Donald Trump mask, let me borrow it.
JD does this thing, Brad, when he talks about Hillary Clinton, where he's saying, no, I don't like her, but he's shaking his head yes.
No, but I was going to say, one of the comments in the on the post was, if you want to go as a liar, I have a mask for Hillary Clinton. You know, and I thought that was a pretty good comeback, but I don't like Hillary Clinton, so it didn't bother me. But I can't figure out why Tulsi Gabbard. But I'm glad, because I think it's going to boost her.
Oh, she's getting all kinds of crazy publicity out of this.
And this is exactly the kind of publicity, you know, somebody like Tulsi needs, and get her name out there. But I want to read her tweet that she tweeted back at Hillary. She said, "Thank you, Hillary Clinton. You, the queen of warmongers, embodiment of corruption, and personification of the rot that has sickened the Democratic Party for so long, have finally come out from behind the curtain. From the day I announced my candidacy, there has been a conservative campaign destroying my reputation." Does that sound familiar? From Bernie?
Mm-hmm.
And what the Democratic Party did to him 4 years ago?
Absolutely.
Or 2 years ago? We wondered who was behind it, and why. Now we know it was always you, through your proxies and powerful allies in the corporate media and war machine, afraid of the threat I pose. Those are some pretty strong words from the representative from Hawaii. And you guys know, from one of the first episodes, Tulsi's been my girl.
Oh, I like Tulsi.
And I think this has been the best thing that's happened to her in her campaign yet.
And I'm not positive. Okay, because here's what you got going on right now. You got the DOJ, or the State Department, right? Just finished that big investigation, and they're saying however many 100 people did illegal stuff with the emails, and all that stuff just came out yesterday. Okay, so I don't, even with the Clinton camp, like the media is pushing Tulsi out. But I think everybody knows, I mean, who's going to beat Trump? Kamala Harris? You know, none of these people are going to beat him. You've got, you know, Biden's being destroyed right now. I don't think that Bernie has half of the following that he had a few years back.
And Elizabeth Warren has showed up as the front runner now.
Right. And I don't think once you get into the debates and stuff, I think that she's going to fall off just like Biden. You know, I'm not a big Tulsi Gabbard fan, but I will say that she makes a heck of a lot more sense than anybody else up on that stage. But, you know, she's at, 1 or 2% or whatever they've got her at now. It would probably actually benefit Clinton for her to be the front runner, because I think at the end of the day, not now, but 6-12 months from now, she might be the only person on the stage that would have a chance of competing. You know, once everything comes out, because you're going to see the same thing, like I said, with Warren. She's leading now, but just wait until she's getting smoked every week about her fake Indian stuff and about her getting into Harvard and lying on. All that stuff's going to come out. And I think the cleanest one in the race is probably going to be Tulsi Gabbard. So I agree with you, JD. This has taken her up to another level, because what they have done with her here is made her almost like the Trump figure, being the underdog, that the establishment's against them and the Clintons are against them. And they've made her, basically into a martyr by Clinton attacking her. But what I think is hilarious about this whole thing.
This better not be about Babylon B.
No, this isn't about Babylon B this time. Is Clinton is coming out and calling Tulsi Gabbard and Jill Stein Russian agents. Which, that's kind of her go-to move. Right? Just like with LeBron, if he disagrees with somebody, he says they're uneducated. Right?
Right.
So, you've got Hillary Clinton paid for a Russian dossier to try to win the election. Sold 20% of our uranium to Russia. Her foundation received millions from Russia. Her husband received $500,000 for a speech in Russia. But she's accusing everybody else of being Russian agents. So you talk about projection.
Yeah, projecting much. No, I just thought that was weird. That she would call out Tulsi Gabbard. I'm kind of like JD. If there was a candidate on the Democratic side, and I don't agree with a lot of what Tulsi stands for. There's a lot of things she stands for that I don't agree with, personally. But if everybody's standing up there, she's the one person that I could see myself voting for in a general election.
Right.
Now, like I said, just we say it every week. I mean, I would vote for Trump as long as Trump makes it through. That's probably who I'm going to vote for. But at the end of the day, on the Democratic side, she's probably the one person I would vote for. And I just found it odd.
I've been on Tulsi since a few months ago. When we first started this thing, they had the first Democratic national debate. I think Hillary misstepped here and gave her credibility that she didn't have before. I mean, I think a lot of people would probably never even heard her name or given her name a second thought until somebody like Hillary Clinton comes out and speaks against you. And it's like, now it's instant credibility, especially against people who were center left and not the far left that, we've been seeing used from the Democratic Party the last couple of years.
All right, so let's go into, you have another comment, Brad?
Well, I've just got one more point on that. And I'm just curious if you all are seeing this as well. Are you noticing that things are changing as far as even in the debates or just conversations where at least our politicians, I'm going to give them some credit, are having at least more open conversation like for Tulsi Gabbard going back at Clinton the way she did and being honest. Because if you watch the debates, the things that we grew up watching, these smooth talkers saying, oh, well, this, and they've got this big fancy word track for, well, I'm for this in the middle class, and then we're going to move forward, and we're going to take this. Are you all seeing right through that now, where it just looks so cheesy, and you appreciate the people? I don't care who they're bashing, if they're bashing Trump, if they're going at each other. And I don't mean just a mudslinging contest, but actually having honest conversation, not being a politician or a robot, but actually acting human.
So what you're saying, my grandpa used to call straight talk. Finally got some straight talk on these debate stages instead of the cookie cutter answers that we've been so used to hearing growing up. And I think it's a good thing. There's probably a lot of credit of that, I'm sure, goes to President Trump.
Yeah. I mean, really, because
even though I think he was stepped over the line, but yeah.
Yeah. So let's go on with our Week of the Weird. And I'm going to read this. ABC News apologized Monday for mistakenly running a video that apparently was taken at a gun range in Kentucky with a report about Turkish attacks in northern Syria. So ABC News did a story on Turkish attacks in northern Syria and showed a video that they said that was in Syria, and it turns out it was from about 2 years ago in Pine Knot, Kentucky, at a machine gun show. Basically, they had a night shooting, they were shooting machine guns off. Which just further goes, there's so much we will say now that is fake news. We've heard, Trump's made fake news just in every day. That's what you say. Fake news. But they keep doing it. Is there no... I thought there was such, they say journalism, you're supposed to check your sources and make sure these things are right, because this is where we're getting our information. But they took a video from in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, at a gun range and tried to pawn it off as a war, as an attack in Syria.
And that's not an accident. You don't just accidentally get that. And they actually took the tape, changed the quality of the tape, to make it look a little more like you'd have a real video. And then they get busted and they come out and which I'm glad they actually retracted it. Do you know how many of those videos here in the last couple of years that have come out? I saw one where it was showing all these people that were migrants, and it looked like I thought they were out in the middle of the ocean, 1,000 foot deep, and it looks like they're struggling and they're about to drown. And then all of a sudden you look in the background and this guy doesn't know he's in the picture, and he's standing up and the water is coming up to about his knees. So these people are sitting on their butts in the water, splashing around acting like they're drowning, and then you can see somebody in the background standing there.
What, didn't that happen on the Weather Channel this year too?
Well, it happened with the in the hurricane in, what was it, in Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
They had the hurricane, and the mayor is going by in the boat, right? Like she's out in the boat because the water's like 20 foot high. And then all of a sudden somebody just comes walking in behind her. You know, I think it's like two guys just walking in behind her. At some point, you know, I think a lot of people are starting to see it. A lot of people are starting to see it because you things that we just took for granted before, or that you just watched on TV and you said, you know what, this is real because, you know, Walter Cronkite or whoever's telling me it's real. And now people are stepping back and saying, does this make any sense at all? Like, there's so many things that are missing from a lot of these news stories. There's either things missing or there's things that are there that just don't make any sense. But the good thing about it is once you break through that, you start seeing it everywhere.
I mean, to me, the biggest story is the credibility that ABC has now lost and the hit that their reputation took. Like you said, you know, we threw fake news around a lot. But when you put something like this out, guys, it puts a real tarnish on your reputation. And, you know, ABC News was always, you know, me. I remember growing up, and was that Dan Rather? Wasn't Dan Rather at ABC? And that's where you turn for your news, guys. Not your opinions and all. That's where you got news. And for them to do something like this really shows almost the deterioration of our culture as a whole, that they have gone so far from where they used to be.
Well, it goes back to a conversation I was having with somebody the other day, and I said, they were talking about the news, and, you know, seems to be a lot of fake news out there, you know, kind of seeing through the BS, so to speak. And I said, you know, you've got to change where you're getting your information. You almost have to anymore. I very rarely, as much as I talk about Trump and those things, I very rarely watch Fox News. I very rarely watch CNN. I very rarely watch NBC, ABC, CBS. Because I think stuff like that happens more often than not anymore. That happens a lot. So I more get my information from citizen journalists, these different, you know, small organizations who are out there and these mainstream media companies are trying to crush. But that's where I get a lot of my information from now.
And I think that's where it's going. That's where it's at. If you follow some of these citizen journalists, I mean, there is some out there that are doing phenomenal work. Tracy Beans comes to mind. And, you know, these are people that are out on the street. They do this. They vet what they say. Should they make a mistake, they will come out immediately and say, hey, I was wrong on this, or this is misinformation. And they are faster than the news now. So there is no need for somebody to sit. I don't need to sit and turn on Fox News to watch, you know, whatever the agenda is for today. I can get the news in live time from the citizen journalists who actually go the extra step and vet what they're saying. I saw an article yesterday where talking about the death of Elijah Cummings. And this is what the article said. Now, this guy, I obviously was not a fan of him at all. You know, I thought he was responsible with a lot of these people for you know, destroying Baltimore and a lot of these areas. Didn't agree with the guy on anything politically. Obviously don't want anybody to die. It's, you know, you don't want to see anybody lose their life. Here's what the headline said. It said, Trump opponent, Elijah Cummings, dead at 86 or however old he was. So that's one of those things. Step back and think, okay, what is another scenario where that would ever happen on this planet? Like, how would you make that part of somebody's eulogy? Right? How disrespectful is that to him and his family? And the only reason they did it was to take a stab at the president. We've never seen anything like this. And it's not, again, like him or don't like him, I don't agree with everything. But what I'm saying is just that headline just shows you what the fake journalism is doing, and it's all of them. I think Fox is just as bad as the rest of it. I've not watched Fox in 2 years.
I agree. No, when this misinformation gets out there, it takes away from the real story. You know, we was talking before we started recording. We don't even know if for sure Turkey went into Syria, but they did. But we got so caught up in ABC's scandal that we forgot to look what the real news was, and it's causing confusion. And it's just irresponsible journalism that is not, there's no excuse for it, period.
And this goes back to something that we just recently talked about. Okay, do we actually take information and make an informed decision like we think we do? Or do we focus and are all our opinions based upon what they tell us is important at the time? We'll use this for an example. What should be the biggest nonstop story that has been going on in America for the last 3 months? Jeffrey Epstein and the pedophile rings. You've got the Ed Buck situation. So you've got all of these different things. You've got Syria. You've got impeachment. You've got all these different things. What has not been talked about? What has completely been buried for the last 90 days has been Epstein.
But I guess there hasn't been any more child sex ring scandals, right?
Well, actually, I guess this was yesterday, the Justice Department took down the largest darknet child porn website in the world. Did you all see this by any chance, Jimmy Don?
I did. I saw it. Yeah.
Okay, so there were, I want to say 333 people arrested across 38 countries. 92 of those were in the U.S. This stuff is happening all around us. And this was not this was not a porn website that happened to have things with children on it. This was only children. There were 250,000 videos. It was 8 terabytes of data showing sex acts with children, toddlers, and infants. And, you know, it makes me sick to talk about this. And I know most of you all don't want to hear it. But here's what my question is. 250,000 videos of small children. How many children is that are in these situations? And why is this not the main thing in not only in the country but in the world that we're trying to fix right now?
Well, I feel like you've seen, especially since Trump's been president, or maybe I just noticed after Trump became president, but there have been more, and this is not something you will see in the mainstream media. There have been more arrests, more indictments for this type of behavior. When I read that it was infants and toddlers, it made me sick. I mean, and this was out on the dark web. There was a guy that was a former federal agent, I believe, that got caught up in this.
Yeah, there was a guy in the Army. There was a federal agent. There's all kinds of, like I said, you've got all these people arrested. And this isn't something new that just started. I mean, the indictments just came out last week, or in the last couple of days. But this was going back to 2017, 2018 when they started going after these people. And one of the first things that happened was that back page that got shut down. You know, that there was a lot of stuff with that they thought it was basically a kind of a prostitution ring. So what's happening with every one of these things that they're taking down, everything is leading to the next thing. So all of these things aren't separate between the Epsteins and between the dark net and between the Ed Bucks. But what's happening is they have been after these things for, you know, since at least 2017. So as they get somebody in, and you'll start seeing sentences for things that you would think somebody should get life in prison or hang from a noose, that might get 5 years. And what I'm hoping is, well, that's at least that they're turning on multiple other people, and that's why you're seeing a number of these things come out. So, but the thing specifically with this is just that the number of children, where are these kids coming from? And then you've got the other, even with the Nexium sex cult that we talked about in one of the first episodes. They had 11 daycares throughout the country in London. And people have to wake up and understand that we have to protect our children.
No, you read a story like that, when I read it, and the first thing I thought of is, man, I need to keep a little better eye on my girls.
And yeah, that's true. But here's my takeaway, is when I think about a pedophile, I have a certain idea in my mind of who this person is. And it's not somebody with money. It's not somebody with a doctorate. And it's not somebody who goes to college or is clean or all those things. But now these big sex rings, guys, listen to this. I want to read this part from an article on the Independent, UK. It says the arrest, talking about these arrests of these over 300 people. The arrests are the result of years of hunting by the National Crime Agency, Britain's version of the FBI, which came across this website while investigating geophysicist Dr. Matthew Fowler, Falder. Fowler admitted to 137 offenses in 2017, encouraging child rape and sharing images of a newborn baby being abused and is serving 25 years behind bars in the UK. Did you all catch the name? Geophysicist Dr. Matthew Fowler. So, yeah, keep an extra eye on your children. He's probably, I don't know what the guy looks like, but I bet you if he's a doctor, he probably has some money. He probably dresses nice. He's probably maybe a nice looking man. But that's not, when I think of a pedophile, that's not the image I have in my head.
And that's exactly how they get away with it. Now, I do have some concerns with some of these agencies that are supposed to be protecting kids. Something we're going to get in on a later show, it will be some of the issues with CPS nationwide. And again, I'm not talking about, my wife was a social worker forever, and our rank and file people, obviously, I think most of these people out here are doing great work. I'm talking about some of the top levels of where, kids will be taken out of homes and different things. So I just want, where are all these kids coming from? I mean, even if these people are, a lot of times you'll see a family member or an uncle or an aunt or these things. There was one guy that they said had 50 years worth of videos in his possession. I don't know what they meant by that, but they said one person had 50 hours, and they said one person had 50 years. Wow. So, again, I don't know exactly what that means, but I can tell you one thing, that there are a lot of children and small children that are in harm's way. And if we can't agree on anything else as a country, we have to come together and do something about this.
Yeah, and go back to your original point. Where's the coverage? Why is this not being covered? I mean, it should be plastered all over our televisions. It should be plastered all over our newspapers. It should be in every magazine. But instead, we're worried about, what the Kardashians are wearing or the latest movie that's in, But guys, our children are more important than all those things.
And I think that question is one that we can all ask, and probably don't have to go too far to answer it. We're being bombarded with information almost as a red herring to take you off the trail. Because, again, Epstein was the biggest story in the world.
For 2 days.
For 2 days. And then you start having all this other stuff thrown on you. Go here, look at here. Here's a shiny thing over here. Oh, look, butterflies. We go as a society where they take us. And until we break through that, I don't care which side you're on, if you're on the right or on the left or in the middle, you can sit and piss and moan and fight back and forth until you break through that and understand that is the scam. The party system and the media propaganda, until we get past that, we will be sitting in the same spot having the same conversation 20 years from now, coming to stalemates on issues that we don't agree on, and the whole time our money's getting taken, the kids are getting raped and pillaged and and then we're going to be in all these wars all over the world. It's never going to change.
No, I'm with you, man. I totally agree. But I almost feel like we have to have somebody with enough guts as a media source to take this on head on.
And I'm sure part of it is, I mean, man, who wants to hear about that? I mean,
Right,
like, I even
yeah.
have trouble talking about it. You know, I mean, when I read it, I was like, my goodness, you know, it's awful. But people do need to hear this because this has been going on all over the country. Them busting these rings. I mean, this has been going on pretty consistently for the last couple of years, and you never hear about it. And it should be the number one story that we talk about.
One of the things when we first started doing this podcast, Brad sent me a link to this big ring that was busted up. And I thought, oh, Brad, like, you know, I getting to know Brad pretty well. And I was like, oh, he's just being a conspiracy guy. That's probably who Brad is. But then I seen the link he sent me was to the State Department or Department of Justice. And I was like, oh, you know, maybe this is real. And it is. But it's crazy that it's not being covered.
So again, what do we even need the media for now? We're stuck in this mold of something we don't even need. You have pretty much live coverage of everything that happens. You have multiple places that you can vet it. Why do we need the media? And we're still stuck in that. And, you know, I think it's funny you bring up the term conspiracy theorists. You know, people joke around, and it honestly doesn't bother me. But notice these are going to be the key words, okay? As this stuff starts coming out about more of the pedophilia stuff and more of the corruption with politicians, here's going to be your catchword. You're going to hear everything is a vast right-wing conspiracy, or it's going to be conspiracy theorists, or they're going to say this is debunked. And like with these debunked stories, you know, you made it when we were talking about Ed Buck, you made a comment about, well, they found one guy in the bed and he was naked and then said, well, no, he was wearing socks. Well, that's how they will do these debunk stories. So they'll say, okay, well, they found a person naked in this person's bed. And then there'll be a headline that said, oh, no, well, that was debunked. And then you read down through it and it says, no, the guy wasn't naked. He was wearing a wristwatch and a pair of socks, right? But if they start a headline and say debunked, then people are like, oh, okay, well, that's fake. Well, conspiracy theorists, not that the word didn't exist. You can find it in some old writings from like the 1800s. But it really didn't become mainstream until the late 60s, after people started questioning JFK assassination. So conspiracy theories started going out. Think about how powerful that word is, because anything that you say, if they come out on the news and say, oh, well, this is conspiracy theories, people think, oh, well, this person's crazy. But let me ask you this, out of the things that were considered conspiracy theory, right? You know, Jimmy Don, some of the stuff that we were talking about 10, 12 years ago, not that a lot of people don't get things wrong, but who do you think has been closer to the truth of the pedophilia and the corruption? The conspiracy theorists?
Oh, no, it's been a conspiracy theorist all the way.
So I think what we will be getting close to here in the near future is the term conspiracy theorist will actually be worn with a badge of honor, because there will be a side to pick whether you were a conspiracy theorist or were you a sheep.
I think another one of the big terms that you're going to hear that has already started being thrown around is the deep fake. Right? Every time they find somebody on camera saying something crazy or on audio saying something crazy, oh, that's deep fake.
Oh, you've heard Obama say it already? I mean, you've heard a number of high-profile people talk about deep fakes.
But the thing is, how you going to know? It's going to be tough. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
But it'll be interesting going forward.
No, and that's, you know, so this is a hard thing to transition out of. So let's get into our last segment here.
Oh, yeah.
JD made a little run. Honest this week, he went, what'd you go, JD?
3-2.
3-2. Brad went 3-2. I went 2-3. Had a rough week. Michigan kicked my butt this week, JD.
I told you that. I warned you not to pick Michigan. I told you.
I know, you did. You did. So right now, the standings are in first place, JD Dameron, 25-14 overall. Second place, Jimmy Don, 24-15 overall. And in third place, at 23-16, is Brad. Now, on the way over here, JD, Brad and I were talking and said it almost looks like we've set this up because we're all one game apart through week 8. And this is going to come down. It's going to be really close, man.
Sure.
I mean, this is going to be really close at the end. I mean, I think this is going to be kind of fun and exciting.
I just appreciate you saying third place and not last place, because that sounds a lot better.
Well, I started to say bringing up the rear, but I was trying to be nice. You are my
You didn't want to
brother-in-law.
make me jealous.
Right. Oh, my goodness. I'm cutting that out, JD.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, guys. We've lost it here. All right, so the games this week that we're going to pick, and JD, we'll start with you, and then we'll just kind of come around the room. You got number 13, Wisconsin, at number 3, Ohio State. Ohio State is a 14.5-point favorite.
Where are they playing at?
At Ohio State.
Give me the Buckeyes.
I'm going with the Buckeyes.
I'm taking Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin will cover that. Number 9, Auburn, at number 2, LSU. LSU is a 6.5-point favorite.
LSU.
I got to go with LSU. I honestly think LSU might be the best team in the country.
They may be.
That offense is, wow.
That quarterback came from Ohio State, didn't he? The guy that's playing quarterback for LSU? I think he did, dude. He's legit.
But if he's not Martin County High School, I really...
You don't know.
That's what you're saying.
So I'm going to take LSU as well. I think LSU's really good. Then we've got number 8, Notre Dame, at number 19, Michigan. And Michigan is a 6.5-point favorite.
I'll take the Irish.
I got to take the Irish, too.
I'm taking the Irish, too. I will not. No more Michigan for me. Now we've got kind of a weird one. South Carolina at Tennessee. And Tennessee's a 1-point favorite. So it's a pick 'em. Oh, I'll go first. I'm taking South Carolina all the way. I'll never, ever pick that puke orange.
And as bad as this hurts me, I'm taking the Volunteers.
Gamecocks.
Yeah, all the way. I can't. That
I just
orange.
want to say Gamecocks.
I know you did. You're such a child.
You just got sniggered when you said that.
Yeah, I'm a child too. I didn't say I called you a child. I didn't say I wasn't one too. The last game is Washington State at number 12, Oregon. Oregon is a 5.5-point favorite.
Quack, quack, baby.
Quack, quack for me too. The Oregon Ducks. All right, so one thing you all got to do for me real quick is because I was at the campground last night, I did not get to watch the Kentucky game. Now, I was trying to follow it on my phone, and going into the third quarter, I think it was about midway through, it was still 0-0. So, but then we ended up getting beat 21-0. I think they scored 2 touchdowns in the third quarter and then 1 in the final quarter. Did the Cats defense play well? The offense couldn't move the ball?
They played awesome. I think they just got wore down at the end of the game. I think when, you got, one of the bright points of Kentucky all year is they got the best punter in the country. And then you've got that game. They've held Georgia 0-0. It's pouring the rain. I don't know if he mishandled the punt or whatever happened, but Duffy, who usually kicks them about 70 yards, kicks one 15 yards, and then Georgia scores. And then they came back and scored again. I think it just kind of took the wind out of their sails.
Well, and I felt like this all year long. I feel like our ones are just as good as anybody. As you start getting deeper and you start wearing down, that's where we really start losing games. We take an injury here. And, playing without a quarterback, guys, is tough. You got your wide receiver playing quarterback. And you can do those things and play with South Carolina and play with Tennessee. But you're not going to play with Georgia.
Well, let's kind of project out the last few games of the year here. We got 5 to 6 games left. Can't remember exactly which one it is. We have Missouri at home next week.
We'll beat Missouri.
I think we can beat Missouri. Missouri's pretty good, but I think we can beat Missouri, especially if Sawyer Smith is back. And then I think we're on a bye week. And then UT Martin, Vandy, Tennessee, and Louisville. So we have an opportunity to win out.
Yeah.
And I think if we can get healthy, we can win out. And 5 more games? We've got 3 wins. It's an 8-win season.
Yeah. And I think that Sawyer Smith is getting healthier. And there was some question about why he didn't play Saturday. But I think that, the coaching staff, they have film. They know who's the better football team. There's no reason to put Sawyer Smith on that field and rush him back.
Right.
Let's get him healthy. Let's get him in some games we can win and try to save the season a little bit.
How about you guys? The high school team, JD. How did y'all fare this weekend?
We did not fare well. That's probably the most well-coached team we played this year. Their defense, they run the same defense we run basically, but those guys are read their keys every play. They're always where they're supposed to be. It's a good football team. I felt like our effort still wasn't there where we're supposed to be, and we're still just banged up, man. So if we win this weekend, we may see those guys again as well. So the last 2 weeks we've lost, but we may see both those teams in the future, and I hope to.
Good deal. How many games you guys got left?
2 in the regular season.
Oh, you have 2 regular season games left?
Yeah. Then we go to Shelby Valley. I can't wait to play those guys again.
Yeah, I look forward to that. All right, so one last thing, some housekeeping stuff. Brad was actually on another podcast this week.
Oh, Brad.
And it's a guy that's from Martin County. And he's reached out to us a few times. Brad, talk a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah, I was on the Well Daggum podcast a couple days ago, and they're a friend of the show. Josh is actually a Martin County boy. He does the show out of Cincinnati. Absolutely had a blast. If you get a chance, go check him out on iTunes. I think they're on. He's on Spotify. Pretty much everything we are. I don't think Podbean, but the rest of them. But it was nice. Got to talk about Martin County a little bit. Cut up a lot different than our show. I know we get pretty serious on here, but it's a great conversation. I enjoyed getting to spend time with him, and anyway, go check him out.
Again, yeah, definitely check him out. I've listened to a couple of his episodes. They're well produced. I mean, I think he does a good job, and I have to, if he's listening, thank him, because from the jump, he has shared our stuff. Yep. He has, I don't know. He's reached out to all of us. Mm-hmm. Offered his advice, so we appreciate you, man, for doing that.
He's been in the game a lot longer than we have. He's had his show running for, I believe, over a year now.
Yeah, but I feel like you cheated on us with another podcast, man.
So, Brad, this is an intervention.
Yeah.
How can you step out on JD and I?
No, Josh, we appreciate you. Keep up the good work, man, and everybody support him.
Again, that's Well Daggum.
All right, good deal. We appreciate him, and to the rest of you guys out there listening, we appreciate you guys as well. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and make sure that you check out the episode that we drop on Wednesday, which is our interview with Matt and Summer Brown about the opioid epidemic. It's just, honestly, guys, it's can't miss, in my opinion. It was just that good. It was very powerful sitting in the room with them, talking to them. And I can't wait to drop that one, because I think people are really going to get something from it. So from myself, JD, and Brad, we appreciate you guys listening. And as we always like to end the show, no matter how bad your week's been, no matter how bad your day's going, if you just add bourbon, it always get a little bit better. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you next week.